Well, welcome back once again, all my YouTubers, and especially a very big thank you to all 10,500 subscribers who have now signed up to my Classic Dirt Bike TV channel. Now, in my next video posting, we're going to take a quick look around a few Italian-made motorcycles that were produced during the 1970s and 1980s, and during that period they built a variety of trials, motocross and enduro machines. So let's get straight into the video and take a look at a few SWM classic twin shockers. Now, the examples that we're going to see here are a few bikes that I captured at the Telford Classic Dirt Bike Show a couple of years back, but these of course are just a very small variety of the many good quality bikes that were built by SWM. Now, SWM were an Italian motorcycle manufacturer founded in 1971 by Piero Cironi and Fausto Vergani, who initially started by building bikes with the smaller capacity Sachs engine, and then they moved on to the slightly larger and more competitive Rotax two-stroke motors in 1977. Now, the bike's title SWM is of course an abbreviation for Speedy Working Motors, which is certainly one of the strangest titles for a motorcycle manufacturer, although despite that they did produce some really good quality bikes which were mainly powered by these bulletproof Rotax two-stroke motors. And as I mentioned, they made a variety of enduro trials and motocross bikes. In this particular shot we can see two of those lovely enduro models and a trials bike at the far right. Now, this model on the left hand side here is one of SWM's trials bikes, and as I recall, a few of these had the rotary valve and a special chassis which was partly developed by legendary trials rider Sammy Miller. So these are a very rare bike indeed. Although these 175 machines were just perfect for enduro or motocross, but more especially suited for enduro because of the smaller 175 Rotax motor. Although SWM did produce a bigger 440 enduro machine in the early 1980s, which was also perfect for motocross racing. But as you can see, SWM stamped their own manufacturer's emblem on the engine casings, although these were still essentially just Rotax motors. Now, as I remember, these bikes had Marzocchi forks, and I think it was Acerbis who supplied all the plastics for these bikes, but these SWMs were quite distinctive with their orangey red and white colour livery. And also, as you can see, they had a decent suspension clearance at the rear with good shocks and a light steel swing arm, although later models would be fitted with the much lighter alloy replacement. But overall, these Italian SWMs were a very good package, and apparently they sold quite well across Europe at the time, although you still don't see many taking part in enduros or motocross in this modern day. Although the upgrade from the earlier Sachs motors to these Rotax two-stroke engines certainly made a huge difference to the appeal and performance of these bikes, and good examples in near original condition can command good prices if you've got one to sell. But most of the bike, like the frame, the tank, the seat and exhaust, are all manufactured by SWM, with many of the other parts, including the front and rear suspensions, the wheels and hubs, etc., all supplied by outside sources. Now again, these SWM seats were decent quality and in quite a good place to rest your backside on between the bumps on the track. Now this model also had a steel tank, not an alloy one, and SWM also made their own expansion chamber for this Rotax motor. But as a bike to be used for a bit of enduro fun or even just a bit of green laning, these 175s were just about the perfect tool for the job, because they were well put together and they never really had any real vices that would catch you out when the going got tough. And it still surprises me that you don't see many more of them at enduro or scrambles events. Now, regular visitors to my channel may recognise this particular machine because I've posted a video of this bike on my channel previously, but it's still worth another quick look, as it's a 1981 440 SWM. Now this was another bike that I captured at the Telford Classic Dirt Bike Show. Now this is a 1981 440, although it's maybe not a fully original bike from that particular era, because it does have different rear shocks on the machine, but nevertheless a very good example of one of these 440 Enduro SWMs. Now once again, and as in our previous machines, this bike is powered by an Austrian made Rotax engine. Now the bike also has a VM 38mm Mikuni carburetor and a full race exhaust and tailpipe fitted. Now as I mentioned, it's not a fully original bike because it does have different rear shocks on the machine, and the shocks are a pair of YSS piggyback shocks. These are excellent quality and just perfect for this enduro bike. Now the gearing on the front and rear sprockets has been specially done for racing enduros, with a 15 tooth primary sprocket and a 44 tooth sprocket on the rear. Now these 81 bikes had the plastic fuel tank as opposed to the steel tanks on the earlier SWMs, and these were partly translucent, and you can just about see some fuel already sitting there in this particular tank. Now once again, this bike powered by a very good 440 Rotax two-stroke motor. Now these engines were probably chosen by SWM because they had a very good reputation for reliability and for producing good power, and as you can see, SWM stamping their own logo on the side casing of this Rotax motor. But this particular engine had the conventional piston port intake system on the carburetor, as opposed to some of the other Rotax motors with the rotary disc valve induction system. But these were great engines, and Rotax supplied these to many different motorcycle manufacturers. But in terms of these Rotax two-stroke motors power output, I think at the time these used to produce about 47 brake horsepower, which was pretty decent for a bike from 1981. Now in this year, SWM were producing this lovely alloy swing arm for these enduro machines. This swing arm was quite long, quite light, and of course it was extremely strong. But these particular 440 SWMs were perfectly suited for enduro racing or even motocross because of the bike's fantastic chassis, the good front and rear suspension, and of course that very reliable Rotax motor. But in terms of any kind of off-road racing, these SWMs were perfectly suited. Now, as far as I'm aware, when this bike was on show at Telford, it was still being used on the track frequently at race events, as the owner of the bike told me on the day. So despite it being used as a race bike from week to week, it's still in fantastic condition for its time. Now, as you would expect, because this is an Italian made machine, it's fitted with these Italian Marzocchi front forks, which are very good quality, and they're used in a multitude of other makes and models of off-road motorcycles. But a full lighting kit, of course, as you would expect on an enduro machine. So there you have it. I do hope you've enjoyed this very brief look around some of these iconic Italian-made SWM motorcycles. Now, don't forget, if these are the kind of machines that you like to look at here on YouTube, then maybe you'd consider subscribing to my channel to see more of these kind of off-road classics. Okay, coming up in my next video, we will be showcasing Sam Sibbald's lovely TT500 Yamaha. So until the next time, thanks once more for watching Classic Dirt Bike TV.